What we're looking for is to give trainings that are usually fairly technical on a number of subjects that are absolutely key in the management of banks. The first, of course, is related to risk management, and more specifically, financial risk management. We've called that the asset liability management. It's actually a little broader than that. It covers interest rate, liquidity, credit risk. The real question is this needed in Egypt, and what would be the reasons why the bank would need it? And it's not imagined. The reality of life today is that inflation is coming in every country in the world. The reaction of inflation is a change in interest rates. For in Egypt, it could lead to a change of the deposit reserve requirement. It could lead a change to the corridor rate. It could lead to changes in the interest rate curve. It can lead to changes in the way banks fund themselves and make loans. Now, if you are not prepared, then that would mean that you would be influenced by external events without the capability of management. What you need to do is to be able to manage those changes, and managing by either hedging or opening positions, and about changing the prices of your product. All those things are what an ALM department does. So it is absolutely important that this is done on a regular basis in a certain way, and that is what we will show in the simulation and in the training. We will be doing that with concepts and illustrated by a computer-based asset liability management simulation, where the students will be actually making decisions as if this was real life. So there's a balance sheet, there are risks, there's a yield curve, there's a change in circumstances, and the students have to make decisions onto how to optimize the financial risks of the bank. We run the simulation and we see the results so that they know what happens when they make this or that solution. The other training I'd like to mention is the risk transfer pricing. It's related to ALM, but it's also related to other risk management activities of the bank. The issue is to know how the profitability of the activities and the products and the clients are within a bank, so that you can actually manage those issues, and to price actively the different products. To do that, you must quantify the risk, interest rate risk, that's called fund transfer pricing, liquidity risk, liquidity transfer pricing, credit transfer pricing. Use different models to actually quantify the risk, because that is what you're going to manage. And you're going to manage it through hedging it or keeping the position open and managing that on a dynamic way on a day-to-day basis. Many banks don't have the adequate tools to make this analysis and look at, for example, the average cost of funds to calculate the profitability of their assets. Now we will show, and we can show, that this actually is misleading. It gives the wrong information to the management, and they will make the wrong decision, which will maximize the losses, or if you like, being more positive, minimize the profits. So going from a very simplistic and old way of looking things to a more complex approach will actually increase fundamentally the way the bank can analyze the risks, analyze the profitability, and adapt its management strategies. So the transfer pricing training is focusing on which models should be used to price all the products in the institution. I forgot to mention, of course, the allocation of costs. how do you allocate operational cost to each of the products. So that is what we cover in the fund transfer, or I should say the risk transfer pricing, which is something that is very close to asset liability management or risk management and management accounting. It's the combination of those two information that allow the bank to price and manage the profitability of the institution. How we will use that in a case study. A case study is slightly different. It is based on a real situation that I have lived, where the management information system showed actually that the bank seemed to be in good financial health. But when you actually went down and analyzed the transfer price for risk, you realize that this bank was in fact in bankruptcy. So the idea there is to use the information to analyze the profitability and start managing the risks in a global strategic way, of which pricing is one, but of which strategy changes in the business models are the other approach. A third subject that we want to train people, because we think this is very, very important, especially in markets that are more traditional in their approach, is the way banks treat and manage their large corporate clients. So we call this training corporate relationship management. Now, this is very much a strategic business model choice that the banks can or don't want to make. So there's two options, and we're going to discuss the two options. The first is the one that the banks often do today, which is a product focus. It's product-centric sales focus, where the relationship manager just sells the product, and usually that ends up as a negotiation on the price of the product. The alternative, which is what all the advanced banks in the world have implemented from a number of decades ago, is a customer-centric approach, where we're not selling products, we're selling solutions that are adapted to the actual needs of the customers in order to maximize their value. The approach is completely different. The fundamental competencies are different. Second approach, which we'll call the consultancy sale, the relationship manager has to make an analysis of each of its customers on the basis of corporate finance approaches, calculating the value of the company and how to increase, optimize that value, and then develop the appropriate financial solutions to achieve that. In the training, we will suggest that the second one is much better, because you're negotiating with the customer not on the basis of price, but on the value of the solution that the bank is proposing to its customers. Now, how are we going to integrate those kind of situation in the training? Well, we will have a case study, which is actually a fairly simple case study, where we will create 4 or 5 teams. 2 of them will be a client, 2 of them will be banks, and they will start discovering the reality, proposing solutions, not products, not loans, but solutions, in order to maximize the value for the shareholders, their clients. And this will be what we call a role play, in which the people participating will actually play the role of the CFO of the company, or the CEO, and the banks will be the RMs, the risk managers, and so on. And by putting those 2 teams together and trying to find the optimum solution, Both of them will learn much more than just listening to the concept, because they will see the result of what they propose. We have another training which I think is important, because from the experience I've had in Egypt, this appears to be a potential weakness. The training is about risk management, which is key, and the particular risk class that I'm focusing on is the credit risk, but not on an individual basis, the credit risk on a portfolio basis. How do banks manage portfolio risk in credit? And that includes a whole series of subjects, from the rating systems that they implement, the pricing of credit risk, and more importantly, the management of credit risk, which includes equity, economic equity allocation, diversification, concentration, calculating of the dynamic loan loss provisions, and so forth and so on. This is a training which is extremely useful. It goes beyond the credit analysis of the solvency of the client. It is integrating all the clients within different portfolios. We're going to illustrate this through case studies, which would use, if possible, real data from the banking system, and transform the data as it is shown today from the accounting perspective or from the central bank reporting system into management information, allowing the banks to minimize or optimize their risk returns for the credit risk. And that will be Excel-based demonstrations of how to do this particular type of training.